Hello everyone, Charles Watts here, the Arsenal correspondent at Goal, joining you on Monday. I hope you're all having a very good start to the week. I'm sure you've still all got smiles on your faces after what happened at the weekend. I know I have had to drop my kids off at school today. Had to do it representing, obviously, just in case there are any Spurs fans around who on the school run just wanted to rub it in. And I'm sure you all did the same, because that's what North London derbies are about, isn't it? Enjoying when you win, hating it when you lose. Fortunately, Arsenal won at the weekend. Obviously spoke a lot about that in the videos I've done since the game. Wanted to talk today about, sort of start it off on William Saliba anyway. Spoke to William Saliba after the game on Saturday down in Mixo. Myself and a few reporters were down there as always, and we sort of grabbed players as they walked past, and we spoke to Saliba. Quotes have just gone live now at midday. They went out. That's kind of how it works. You sort of get a player and then you'll decide what time you put the quotes out, and then so they've gone live today at 12 o'clock. Obviously Saliba, he's not the best talker. He's obviously, his English is decent but not great, so he doesn't talk in big long sentences. But there was a couple of interesting things to come from it, not least about his contract. I asked him about his contract and whether we could get news soon about him putting pen to paper and agreeing an extension. He said, yeah, we will see. They talk a little bit, and that was about as far as he wanted to go, but certainly confirming there that contract talks are ongoing when it comes to him potentially staying at Arsenal. It's so important that they get him tied down to a new contract. He's got 2 years left, under 2 years left on his deal now, summer of 2024, that contract expires. And I think we've all seen already in these 8 games, Premier League games so far this season, just how special he is and how Arsenal need to get him tied down to a new contract. Not just him, but Saka and Martinelli as well. All 3 of them in the same position contracts-wise. 3 key players, 3 starters in the team all need to get signed up very, very soon to stop any sort of speculation. And with Saliba, you just look at him and the way he's taken to English football, the way he's taken to the Premier League, has just been exceptional. There was so much pressure on him coming into this season because he'd been out for so long, he'd been away for so long on loan. It almost felt impossible for Saliba to live up to the hype just because of the level of expectation that was around him finally coming back to Arsenal and finally going to be starting games in the Premier League. And he's not just lived up to the hype, he's absolutely surpassed it. I mean, he has been brilliant. I spoke to Aaron Ramsdale, actually. I'll talk a little bit about what he had to say after the game on Saturday. He was asked about William Saliba, one of the questions, and he called him a Rolls Royce. I mean, he's been called a Rolls Royce before, and he just is. I mean, he was just so good against Tottenham. You look at his numbers, they were ridiculous, his numbers at the end of the Tottenham game. Absolutely ridiculous. Like most passes, most touches, most tackles, most clearances, most recoveries, 100% aerial duels won. It was just a monstrous performance against Harry Kane. And he just, he's just taken to the Premier League like a duck to water. Only 21 years old, never played over here before. We've seen how good he was in France, but you always thought, when he comes, it's going to be different in the Premier League. It's going to, it's not going to find it as easy as potentially he did in France. But he just looks so at home at this level, and the fact he's 21 is just absolutely frightening. And you look at his size, his stature, the way he reads the game, how good he is in possession, how good he is one-on-one. I don't think he's been dribbled past once yet in 8 Premier League games this season. It's just remarkable what he's doing. And, he was talking there about his contract, and it is absolutely essential that Arsenal get him done. I mean, he's loving life in England. He was talking about it. We talked about him finally playing his first North London derby 3 years after signing. And he said, of course it was great. You have to wait every time, and I've waited a long time for my first North London derby. I enjoyed it from the first minute to the end. I'm so happy. Derby, it's a big game where all the fans and the players want to win. I like to play big games like this. And we've talked about the fact he was up against Kane, and next he's going to be up against Salah and Luis Diaz and people like that. And he said, we play against the best players in the world. It's good for young players like me. I learn a lot. And he certainly is learning, and he's learning very, very quickly because he looks absolutely immense. I mean, we've always kind of held Van Dijk up as the pinnacle of defenders in the Premier League, potentially in Europe as well. And you look at the level of what Saliba's producing at 21 and think what the likes of Van Dijk were doing at 21. I mean, it's just ridiculous how good he looks. And getting him tied down to a new contract is absolutely essential, because you look at it and think, if Arsenal can get Saliba tied down, and I know there's been talk before that it's all been agreed, and as I've said in previous videos, that's just not what I've heard at all. And why would it be? It just seemed, he comes back in the summer, he wouldn't have known if he was starting. Everything was still up in the air a little bit. Being, what had happened to him before when it came to Arsenal, he wouldn't have just walked back here in the summer and agreed a new contract. He would have been mad to do so. His agent would have been mad to do so. He would have wanted to wait and see exactly what happened, how the first 6 months went. Was he going to be in the team? How much trust did Mikel Arteta have in him? And you'd be absolutely crazy if you were the player or the agent to agree a contract back in the summer. And so now all Arsenal can do is say, look, this is it. We do trust you. You're 21. You're playing week in, week out in the Premier League in a team at the top of the table, surrounded by other young players. This is what we want. This is what you're here for. And, that's how Arsenal are going to get him to sign a new contract, because there's no doubt that his agent is going to be getting tapped up non-stop right now and in the months that follow by other clubs saying that, we want him over here because he's that good. You'd be mad if it didn't happen. So it's going to be really key for Arsenal. And if they can get him tied down, I mean, you're looking at, you can't even put a value on how good he could end up being, and how much he could be worth. So really essential for Arsenal. Saliba, Saka, Martinelli has to be at the top of the agenda for Edu over the coming weeks and months, and I'm sure it will be. I mean, talks have been, as Saliba says there, talks are ongoing there. We know they're going on with Saka, and will be with Martinelli as well. It's just a case of getting them, convincing them, and getting them to put pen to paper. And if that all three of them do, which fingers crossed they will, then Arsenal will be well set for the future because of their age and because of their talent. Elsewhere, I mentioned that we spoke to Aaron Ramsdale down in Mix Zone as well. Those quotes went live sort of 10:30 last night. I wrote a piece this morning, kind of looking at, that's gone live on Goal Social, so you can find it on there. Kind of looking at the start Arsenal have made and kind of the insight from Ramsdale and what's driving them on. And I thought it was really interesting what he had to say. He admitted that, how last season panned out, the sort of painful way it finished, that has been absolutely the driving force behind Arsenal's start this season. Everyone credits the new players for coming in and transforming Arsenal, but Ramsdale, as well as, he admits that new players have made a difference, but he also says that what happened at the end of last season is also been really crucial to how things have started this season. It's what he had to say. He said the experience at the end of last season are adding to the team spirit and mentality. It's not just the lads who have come in who have brought this winning mentality. We all have the fire burning inside us because of what happened at the end of last season. The day I returned to pre-season, I came back and the standard of training had increased. People are demanding more from each other. Training is a lot more competitive, and there is definitely a mood swing when you lose. There were always certain people who were upset when losing in training, but now it is a collective. The team spirit is really, really strong. I thought those were really interesting comments from Aaron Ramsdale, who's fantastic when you talk to him. As journalists, obviously, when you're waiting for players, there's certain players you want to speak to because they're great when they have a microphone stuck in front of them and they talk really openly. And then there are other players who it's kind of media trained sound bites that you hear from Premier League footballers sometimes. And when you get Ramsdale, you're going to get really, really good content and good comments because he speaks from the heart. He doesn't hide anything. Very honest. It's the same with Granit Xhaka. And I thought those were really, really good stuff from Aaron Ramsdale and gave a really good insight to exactly what the kind of mentality is at Arsenal at the moment and why they just appear so hungry, because they do. The desire, the hunger is obvious from the way they play, and when they have setbacks, how quickly they respond to them. And how they haven't been letting their heads drop. That all is so apparent in this team so far in these early stages of this season. I think what Ramsdale's saying there is a really good insight into exactly, why that is. And I think they were all so hurt by the end of last season that, they came in at the start of this season and were like, right, we're not letting that happen again. We're going to use that as a positive. They're also disappointed about it, but you can always turn negatives into positives, and certainly right now the way it looks and the way the team are playing and the togetherness that we're seeing from the team, I think it's all kind of, they've turned that negative from the end of last season and right now they're using it as positive. There's still a long way to go. Obviously things could go flip on their head and Arsenal could start losing and suddenly it's not looking anywhere near as rosy as it does right now, but certainly the way things are going right now and the way the start of the season that Arsenal have had, I think you look at how it ended in the last campaign, and they've flipped that on the head and they're using it to an advantage. And really good stuff from Ramsdale. Please do head over, and like I said, I tweeted out the piece that I wrote this morning, not just with Ramsdale, but there's sort of insight from Mikel Arteta as well into that and how they're using this new effort mentality, as Aaron Ramsdale described it in some of the quotes he said there, to use that to their advantage. And I think it's a really interesting interview. I also wanted to talk about Ben White on this video because I just don't feel he's getting enough credit he deserves. I was really pleased that Match of the Day and Ian Wright highlighted Ben White after Saturday's game against Arsenal, because he's just not getting anywhere near the credit he deserves for what he's doing this season. Ben White, he's been absolutely superb, I think, at right back, and the fact he's keeping Tomiyasu outside speaks volumes for what he's doing at the moment, because obviously he is a centre-back and he's playing out of position, yet he doesn't look out of position at all. I thought he was great against Tottenham, and you look at that analysis that Ian Wright gave on Match of the Day, and it was spot on. You know, he's bringing so much to this team, and the way he's doing it without any sort of complaints. You know, obviously he'd want to be playing at centre-back, I'm sure he would. We haven't actually spoke to Ben White yet this season. He hasn't done any mixed zone stuff, but I'm sure he will at some point, and he'll be asked these questions. But so you know he'd want to be playing at centre back, but there's no sulking, there's no moaning, and he looks like he's really enjoying it at right back, and he's giving it absolutely everything. And he's just, I don't understand why he's so underrated, Ben White, even amongst Arsenal fans. Not just talking about fans from other clubs, but amongst Arsenal fans, I always get so surprised by some of the comments you get. And I know social media is just not a good way to judge opinion at all, because social media on the whole is just horrible. But I just still get so surprised how there seems to be so many people who almost want Ben White to fail and want him to be bad and try and pretend like he is actually bad when he's clearly not. It just baffles me, it really does, because he's having such a good season. Everyone he's come up against this season playing at right back, I think he's done very, very well. Look at what he did against Palace on the first game of the season. He got grief for his performance against, when he played so well against Zaha and kept Zaha quiet, which is really difficult to do. And yet still people were digging out Ben White, and I've seen it throughout the season, and I just don't get it. So I thought, like I said, I thought it was really, really good that Righty on Match of the Day praised Ben White, because he deserves it. He absolutely deserves it. The fact he's not in the England squad is just genuinely laughable. It's like mad. I can't get my head around it. I don't know what Gareth Southgate's thinking there, because the performance, I know he's playing out of position, he's not playing at centre back, but that doesn't mean you can't still bring him into the squad as a centre back, because you know what you can do there. And the fact that he's playing at right back so well, you're just like, well, how good would he be at centre back? And Gabriel, he made a number of mistakes for the penalty at the weekend, and he's made a few mistakes this season in really rash sort of moments. The rest of his performances have been good, and yet just for a minute he'll lose his head, do something stupid, and it's cost Arsenal. It's happened a few times this season, and I do wonder at some point if that continues, if we might end up seeing a centre-back partnership of White and Gabriel, and White and Saliba, and then you put Tomiyasu in, just take Gabriel out for a little bit potentially. I don't know if it will happen, because Mikel loves to have the left-sided centre-back and the balance that brings, and you wonder if White and Saliba could really play together as well, and it will look as balanced. So, but it'll be interesting if White does get a go at centre-back at some point this season, if how hard it will be to displace him and the performances he's put in. But right now, I've got no issue with him staying at right back, because he's doing such a good job, and he was brilliant against Spurs. And looking forward. He's got a big test this weekend, no doubt about it. It's probably going to be up against Mo Salah for Liverpool, and that's going to be very, very interesting. At some point, Salah will be up against him, or Diaz will be up against him. The way Liverpool sort of rotate that attack, they all sort of switch wings, kind of like Arsenal do as well. So 1 minute he's going to be up against Salah, the next minute he'll be up against Diaz, and we know how good they are sort of one-on-one and how they like to get at the fullbacks. So it'll be a big test for Ben White against Liverpool, and it'll be really interesting to see exactly how he does. But right now, the way he's playing, I can't see him having that bad a game, because he's just doing really well. So well done, Ben White, and well done everyone else at the moment for this great start to the season. We are enjoying it. That's it from me for today's video. Thank you very much for your time. As always, anything you've agreed with, disagreed with, let me know as always in the comments below. Have a very good Monday, everyone. I'll speak to you soon.